Before we start the meeting this morning, Danny, would you lead us in word of prayer?
Sure. We come to you right now, Father, and just give you thanks. And Lord, I thank you, Lord, that we live in this country that we live in. I thank you that we live in this county, Lord, that it's a beautiful place to be, and you have planted us here in your sovereignty, God, and I thank you for that. But Lord, coming up on this Christmas season, Lord, I thank you most of all for your Son, that you sent him, Lord, that he might be the propitiation of our sin, Lord, and that through him, Lord, that we can have eternal life with you, and we just give you praise and thanks for that. And I just ask right now, God, that you be with this meeting, lay your hand upon it, Lord, give us wisdom, and God, we ask that all that we do be pleasing to you. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
At this time, I'll call the Truth and Taxation Act hearing to order, and Perry, would you do the roll call, Commissioners?
Commissioner Feller?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Foster? Commissioner Tolbert? Here. Commissioner Hartline?
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing concerning a proposed property tax increase for Union County. To start off with, we have our assessor, our county collector, and our county clerk here withdraw part of the tax process. We want to try to explain to you a little bit about what's going on with this, before we get into the question part of it. Tammy, would you explain a little bit about the procedure for picking up new property in the county?
Well, we have county building permits, and each municipality village issues building permits. And along with that information and just drive-bys, we pick up new property. We assess it at a third of market value that's mandated by the state. That's kind of where we end with that part of it. Other than people do come to us to apply for exemptions, which Terry can explain is something that he removes at the end of the process when I transfer the building values to him.
Once the assessor's office transfers all the values and does the state abstract into my office, I extend the taxes. What the truth in taxation hearing is for is if you levy more than 5%, 105% more than what was levied last year, you have to have this truth in taxation hearing. And the reason that you levy more than what you did the prior year is because we are a P-TEL county, we're tax capped. And the only way that we can pick up the new property, and I don't know exactly, do you have an idea what that amount is?
Darren, the amount I gave last week, or
Just
was
under
it
2.6.
2 million something?
Just under 2.6, I believe.
About $2.5 million, and the only way we can pick up that additional property and collect tax on it, because we're limited by the CPI or 5%, whichever is less, is to levy more than what we levied the year before. And in order to make sure we get that total amount, you have to go over the 5% to pick up any new property. Doesn't necessarily mean your property taxes are going to go up because of the of this hearing or because we levy more. It just means that we're able to pick up that new property that the assessor's office picked up during the year. Any questions on that part?
Darren and Angela put together the figures for the truth in taxation hearing. Do you want to go over that and how you came up with those figures?
Well, the figures in the letter to the paper are simply the levies that we've, that we're proposing to be extended. And so the truth in taxation hearing, the notice you have to put in the paper is 3 different sections. You have to say the levy for the corporate and special purposes, which in 16 payable 17 was 2.8 million, and so for 17 payable 18, we are levying 3.024 million. So it's going up by about 8%. And the reason is because the overall has to be over 5% in order to capture everything and to trigger this hearing, so that we make sure we capture all the new property. So you state what you're levying for corporate and special purposes, then you state what you're levying for your debt levies, which actually our debt levies are decreasing this year by about 0.37%, so pretty consistent. And then the last section you state is what total taxes are being levied, and this is what has to be over the 5%. So then this actually turned out to be 5.22%, is how that we determine these numbers.
Okay, and Darren, if you want to, each year you send out a pie chart with the taxes and explain how much of the county, of the tax bill the county's actually responsible for. I think it runs from like 17 to 23%.
That's exactly right, roughly 20%,
Yeah.
take 3%.
So basically what we're talking about is 1/5 of your tax bill. And what we're trying to do is expand on our tax base so that that money is spread out amongst the new property that's picked up. Over the last, of course, there's always circumstances, and Tammy can address those that can affect your tax bill. But over the last couple of years, the actual part that we have control over of your tax bill, 2 years ago went up, or I actually went down just a little bit. Last year went up just a little bit. And that's what we're trying to do this year. We're trying to be around to figure where it was the year before. So, Darren, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I think it's a pretty good explanation of the process.
Okay, so the way that we have to put it in the newspaper to comply with PTEL, I know that it looks bad, but actually we're trying, you know, to extend our base to where the money is spread out, where it doesn't affect certain people, so. Does anybody have any testimony they want to give, or any public comments they want to make? Or any questions?
Yes, I did contact the office to be put on the agenda, and I saw this in the paper the last week, and I did call to find out about it, and when I called, I got a fax number instead of a number that was a working number. And I had to go to the treasurer's office in order to get a hold of Angie to be requested to be put on the agenda, and then I was informed, well, I was too late getting that in, so I wasn't allowed to be put on. But anyway, I think everybody probably knows who I am. I'm Ken Pennon, and I've been in business most of my life, and I always know that there's two ways of balancing a budget. And I know that right now that the county is financially having some financial problems, and I was informed that we're in deficit about $400,000 or something of that nature. And I can understand why you need more taxes. And I would also like to thank all the board members for their service. I mean, I know you guys put in a lot of hours working these things out, but I also know there's two ways of balancing the budget. One is we can cut expenses, and I know that's a tough thing to do. It's very difficult to cut expenses in a business, and I don't know anything about the government, how they're making decisions on how they can cut expenses. But the other way is to increase revenue. Well, it seems like in a taxing body, it's always increasing revenue. It's the only thing I've heard about, and so I know that these are tough decisions. The big thing is, we all are proud of our properties. I know a lot of folks here spend a lot of money to increase the values of their property about putting new buildings up, maybe tearing some buildings down and putting new buildings up and those kinds of things. Of course, those goes on a tax roll. I'm in the cabin business currently, and I know in Union County, there's over 40 cabin owners that owns real estate. And I know this has generated a fair amount of additional income over the last 10 years, because most of these have went in business within the last 10 years of those 40. I mean, I know we had a few bed and breakfasts and things of that nature prior to that, but now, you know, there's over 40 owners, and several of those has multiple cabins, including myself. And I know my taxes has increased substantially in the last 5 years. And I know a lot of it's because of improvements I've done on my property. But I know that as I see, you know, paying the taxes I am, it takes a substantial amount of profit back out of my business whenever, you know, the property taxes continue to increase. And also know, and you know, I think I talked to one of the commissioners, and, you know, and it was talking about we're losing population from Union County. And I don't know where people are going, but it doesn't matter. As we continue to increase our values as far as tax base and increase our taxes, people's going to find someplace else to go that they can live cheaper, especially whenever you get to retirement age, because you can't continue to pay the taxes that they may have to be against them. I understand that the real estate tax is based upon what 2.14% of the total real estate taxes collected. It goes to the county, and the rest of it goes to other entities within the county, mostly schools and Stinson Library and things of that nature. So actually, the county doesn't actually gain a lot of additional income whenever real estate taxes goes up. I did talk to Darren Bailey here not too long ago in a meeting, and I asked him about, you know, considering increasing, doing a sales tax increase. This is a more fair tax than the real estate, because only the people that own real estate are the ones that has to pay that tax, while sales tax doesn't matter whether they live in Union County or they live outside the Union County. When they spend money here, that's a tax that everybody pays. I feel like it's a more fair tax. I think that it would be something to consider, is to get this, you know, so the county can get by and continue to succeed. And we want you. I mean, I love Union County. Don't plan to leave it. You know, I guess I'll have to continue to pay the taxes in order to stay. But I just see that if we could just raise the sales tax a little, and I know that currently our sales tax is less here in Union County than they are in the two counties to the north of us. You know, most people don't go and say, well, it's a 0.5% more for sales tax if I purchase my product somewhere else. They don't go there for that reason. That percent does not really make a difference in where you're purchasing your goods, I don't believe. There may be somebody, but most people, I don't think, ever looks at seeing how much sales tax am I paying when I go outside of Union County to purchase something. I think they will continue to purchase in Union County. You know, I believe in supporting our county, the United States, and everything, you know, because we want it to be what it is, and it's a great place to live. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments. And of course, the sales tax has been very successful as far as building and paying for this courthouse. And there are people from other counties that do business here that help to pay for this courthouse.
Amen.
Estimate about 40% is outside the county.
Yeah. Well, kind of, you know, in the next part of our meeting, we're going to do a tax levy ordinance. And then we're going to abate all of the bonds that were for this courthouse. Because the money is coming in from sales tax to make the payments on the courthouse. And I don't know if there's even a reserve. Do you know of?
We funded it with $1 million to start out with. We reserved $1 million just in case we couldn't make payments.
Right.
That's grown because we are outpacing the necessary amount of collection to pay for to make the payments by $5,000 to $10,000 per month. So every month that we're doing this, we're able to make this a little bit. So there should be early retirement for courthouse debt.
Which is a very good thing. Does anybody else have any public comments they'd like to make?
I'd like to ask a question for clarification, Bob.
Sure.
You know, we look at the proposal, you look at the corporate and the special purpose, I'm sure that basically your businesses are gonna be hit with that 8% difference at that point, and you see that, but you made a statement a minute ago that you had trying to even it out, and I kind of understand where you're going with your base, but you said we don't wanna just tax certain people, and it keeps it even off of certain people. Who are the certain people that we're trying to protect, for one thing, if it's not our businesses? Because the businesses are the lifeline, and that's whether you're, you've got a business, a retail business, or whether you're in agriculture, or whatever you're a business, and if you're taxing those folks, and we're losing those kind of businesses, or we're hurting those kind of businesses and their profits, which could affect their stability of being there. Who are we trying to protect? Who are these certain people that we're trying to protect and even out with?
Okay. Well, as you know, being in business, we have a lot of exemptions that the state legislature allows, and Tammy can address that, but when someone receives an exemption, the money has to be paid by someone else. And right now, you know, like I said, there's a lot of different exemptions for a lot of different age groups or organizations. We look at things as the part that we can control. You know, the state mandates what can be exempt and what can't. And right now, the business climate in the state of Illinois is not good. And property taxes do not benefit businesses. You know, we look at, as best we can, spreading that tax base out amongst those taxpayers. But there are things that are allowed in the state of Illinois, certain exemptions, and Tammy can address those if you want to.
And some of those are increasing for 18. So that's a great benefit for homeowners, because you're actually going to be paying taxes on a smaller amount. But then who does that affect? You know, someone has to pick up that difference. Taxing bodies still have to have the same amount of money to run. So that typically affects businesses who get no exemptions. It just trickles down. Obviously, a senior is going to benefit the most. They have the most exemptions. Property owners that just are under 65 years old that just get the owner-occupied exemption, they're going to benefit a little bit less. They're going to have to pick up that difference. Business owners, there's nothing for them, so they definitely feel it hit. So it is sort of like I kind of explain it to people as if we have this large pie of value, but then after those exemptions come off, that obligation to fund all these taxing bodies is still there. So it's not even.
But it seems like a big difference there when you're going 8% for your business owners, and you're only got 0.37% or something for your property owners. You know, I know the exemptions have an effect on that. That's like a large gap. It's like we're really hurting our businesses that way. And if we keep raising our business property taxes, it was 8%, and then whenever down the road it's another 8%, all we're doing is running business out of Union County.
Okay, it's not an 8% increase on the actual amount you pay. It's not.
Well, the total amount is that way, but still it's the same principle. You're gonna get that big of a gap between that property, personal property exemption.
Well, it's going to be, you know, there is some gap, because you experience that now. But it's not gonna be 8%, it's gonna be closer to what you paid last year. It may be a marginal increase, it's nowhere near 8%, nowhere.
Can you tell us what that figure's gonna be?
No. We're still working off estimates We don't have final assessments, and won't have those until, what, the middle of next year, probably. Tammy?
Oh, well, after, they aren't truly finalized till after board of review closes, and that's typically in late February, middle of March.
Yeah.
And then you have the final values for 17 minus exemptions, because by then Terry will be able to deduct those.
We're required by law to have this truth in tax hearing before we can file a tax levy, which is required by the last Tuesday in December. So that's why we have to use estimates. Any other questions? Did anybody have anything to offer?
I just think the main thing to come out of this is, again, trying to explain why the 8% was in the paper is to capture new taxes, basically, in the county. Nobody's taxes are going up 8%. That's what you need to take away from this.
What is
Not even
the,
close to 8%.
but what is the increase going to amount
We
to
don't,
from this
we don't
year?
know
Okay.
at this point, but it's not gonna be anywhere close to that.
We're trying to get it as close to what it was last year.
Well, no, we'll get our tax bill.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
taxes may go up $4.
Huh?
Your taxes may go up $4.
Well, I'll give you $4, I don't mind that.
Okay, I mean,
It's whenever it's $200 or $300 or $500, it makes a difference.
it's not gonna go up anywhere
Yeah, a lot
close to
more.
8%. And of that, the county part of that is very minimal, as stated a while ago. All the school districts, some of them are under P-TEL like we are, some of them aren't. They can do whatever they want to with it. So you gotta take that in consideration. We're not the evil people
I know you're not.
raising taxes. I mean, it's just not that way. And I know, as it appeared in the paper, and I'm glad everybody came, but I just want you to understand, you're not raising your taxes 8%.
Well, Max, you know, the thing is, it's good to hear that, but, you know, kind of knowing what it amounts to makes a big difference. But I do know this, you know, when we're talking about somebody that owns a home, that's assessed valuation's $100,000, that percent is not very much, but you've got somebody else that's got, a business or whatever, and that real estate is valued at an escalated amount, and especially on a business, you don't get any exemptions there. And so that's where the money is killing the people, is whenever it's strictly on, the increases on business people, and they've got property considered commercial property, and the taxes are soaring on that. And those are the folks you want to keep in town, because those are the people that's bringing in other revenues such as sales tax. I mean, the people, for example, the cabin people. I mean, I don't know how many people come in from, outside of Union County to stay in the cabins in 40 units, but I know there's a substantial. I know what I've got coming in. Those folks don't just come and pay me to stay overnight, but they go to Walmart and all these other places and spend their money. So they're supporting our county when we bring those folks in. And I greatly appreciate, the wineries, for example, they bring a lot of people into the county to spend money in our business while we're here. And then they pay sales tax on that. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think the sales tax is such a good thing to try to do something with to help balance the budget.
Thank you.
Yes, as Commissioner Miller said, that one of the main reasons for the truth in taxation is to capture the new properties that come in. And the tax base is going to be the same, and was explained to me, because I wanted to know about this, that if I come in and ask you for money, and you say, how much do you need? And I say, well, I need $20. And then the person says, well, okay, I'll give you the 20, but I have 50 that I could have given you. but since you're only asking for 30, I'll give you 30. Now, the same scenario that if I come in and say, I need money, say, how much you need? Say, I need 70. Well, all I have is 50, so here's the 50. So what we do is we shoot our projections higher so that we can get what actually comes in instead of shooting low, and then that's what they give us. So that's why our projections, that we shoot our projections high, so that the new monies, the monies that actually come in, we can capture those monies. Because in the past, we have missed that. And once it's gone, it's gone. We can't go back and capture new properties once it's gone. So we shoot our projection higher so we can get what actually comes in.
Well, we're talking about new property. What are we talking about when we talk about new property?
Now that I'll have to,
That's just anything new that we put value on the books for
On what?
2017. Anything new. It could be a house, it could be a pole barn, it could be any structure.
In addition to your house, too,
Sure.
correct?
The concern, I think, at this point is that we're taxing more on the business side though than the residential. There's that gap we talk about, right? And the concern is, and the question would be then, so are we expecting less business or more business by making that gap that large? And making that big of a gap between that and residential? So why is that? I understand what you guys are saying, but you gotta go shoot high to get to where you're at, okay? I understand that, Dan, but my thing is that there's a gap, and a pretty good sized gap between the residential and the business. And the business are gonna bring more people in than residential are, and I don't want my residential taxes go up any more than my business taxes do. But still, it's the same point. Why is that, why did you decide on that big of a gap between them on the percentages of rates?
The gap already exists in the state of Illinois.
So that's state mandate.
Yes.
But that's why business is leaving the state of Illinois too.
Exactly.
A lot of purpose, the reason, I mean.
Can I ask a question? Darren, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the only gap that you're talking about between your business and residential is gonna be the exemptions. It's not that you're charging a different tax rate, is that?
There is no difference.
No, there's no different tax
You
rate,
could have
it's
a
just,
$100,000 house, you could have a $100,000 commercial building. There is no, it's $100,000, doesn't matter what it's used for.
the only reason that businesses would pay more is because seniors or
Someone else's
homeowner occupied
exemption.
would get an exemption.
The
There's no
exemptions,
different tax rate for them at all. And then the reason that this 8% is here is because you have to go over 5% to trigger this meeting so that you can capture all your new property. So the 8% is in total. So we're saying, you know, just to make sure that we have everything in there, it's in total. But we're still limited by PTEL. And PTEL is 5% or CPI, whichever is lower. Right now, the CPI, I believe, is approximately 2.1%. So just a little example would be if you had a $1,000 tax bill, the county gets approximately 20% of the tax bill. So for every $1,000 you pay, the county gets approximately $200. Right now, the limit would be 2.1%. So your tax bill will go up $4.20. That's an example of how, so for every $1,000, your tax bill could go up approximately $4.20. So the only difference between a business and a home are the exemptions. There's no different tax rates.
and again, as Angie said, no matter what we project, we can only get what PTEL allows us to have. So we could shoot our projection, you know, as far as we want, but we're only gonna collect what we're allowed to collect. So, you know, we are limited, this board, we can't do that. We could shoot our projections out the roof, but we're only gonna get what PTEL allows us to collect. And the reason that we shoot that is so that we can collect the new properties.
I remember last year we had a gentleman come in and ask a question to Terry, you know, about how he extends taxes, and Terry explained what he could do and what he couldn't do. And then he even said to Terry, he said, well, Terry told me your taxes will be basically the same. And then he said to Terry, well, if my taxes are higher, you're gonna pay the difference. And Terry was confident enough to say, yeah, I'll pay the difference. It's gonna be close to what you pay. But keep in mind that we only control 1/5 of your tax bill. You know, And that's the part that we're trying to control here.
Question, is there a possibility that we could apply for exemption to paying taxes as a business?
Tammy, are there any exemptions available to businesses?
Because, I don't like to talk hearsay, but I've heard about businesses in the county that've been exempted from paying taxes. They put their business here. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just want to know if that's an option.
Bobby, I'm assuming he's talking about abating the taxes
An
when a new
abatement.
business comes in, to attract a new business to our county, if you guys consider abating taxes. I think that's what the question is.
Yes. If an-
So abate means you don't have to pay taxes for a period of time?
Yes.
Or
Is that open to everybody?
or a certain percentage.
Yes.
You're probably talking about one of the large businesses in the county. Master's Choice is one that has received an abatement to keep that business in town and keep the jobs here. We abate those taxes, but the abatement only lasts, I think, for 10 years. And it's only 100% abatement for a set number of years, and then those taxes start going up. They're not just given free rein for 10 years. But on the county, Angie made a good point that you have to look at your tax bill and remember that what we're doing here today only pertains to 20% of that tax bill. So if you had and I'll tell you, my tax bill is about $3,000 a year. My home taxes are about $3,000 a year. So I'm going to have about $600 that goes to the county. If it did go up 8%, that's a $48 raise on my taxes. Now, it would be the same way for a business. The only difference is I get an owner-occupied exemption. What's that limit? Is that 6,000 now? So it actually decreases the assessed value of my property by $6,000. Now, $6,000 is not a huge decrease. It is a decrease, and it does help, but $6,000 off the value of your property is not going to make or break you. It may save a couple $100. Now, it does make a difference, of course, but you have to remember that it's the 20% of your total tax bill is all this can affect. And we are limited. There are certain districts in the county that are not affected by PTEL. You have some school districts or some districts that go over into non-PTEL counties, such as the high school. It goes down in Alexander County. Jonesboro's grade school district goes down in Alexander County. Alexander County is not a PTEL county, so the high school and grade school can do whatever they want. The PTEL doesn't affect them. We can't control that, and we only go by what's mandated by the state. As far as exemptions for your businesses don't get exemptions because we don't want you to have them. It's because the state doesn't allow that. It's not that we are trying to do anything at the county level to do anything different. And I think it's a great idea to have sales tax as a tax. It's one of the most fair taxes I believe there is. But the problem is, that has to be put on the ballot. And you have to have the voters vote that in. And in today's world, most sales tax referendums do not pass, because you've got more than just business owners that are voting on this, that are here, that are trying to understand the process. You've got everybody out there that's able to vote, and they have a vote in that, and it's hard to get something like that passed right now. I'm all for sales tax. I think it is one of the most fair taxes. But
If it's worded properly and presented to the public and advertised properly to where people actually understand the difference of, okay, would I rather have my property taxes go up, or would I rather pay a little more sales tax whenever I buy groceries?
okay.
If people are made to understand that, I think you'd be shocked how the vote would go.
Well, you've got a lot of your property owners, correct, but you get people that don't pay property tax, that rent or whatever. They don't want to see the sales tax, because that's the tax that they're not going to have to pay.
Is
They'll have to
their,
pay.
is their vote more important than the property owners?
No, I'm not saying it's
I
more
mean, and
important,
is the
I'm just saying you
percentage-
have two different groups of people.
Okay, is the percentage of property owners higher than the percentage of
Well, I mean,
renters or?
I can't tell you.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just asking questions. I don't know.
There's one thing about it, we're not gonna get it done unless it's, you know, unless we make the effort to do it. And I do know that we passed at least two that I'm aware of in the recent years of a sales tax. One was for the courthouse, and the other was for safety in Union County. And both of them passed. And I can't imagine that, especially the property owners would have voted against a 0.25% or a 0.5% to help with this. But
Just an example, if you're all familiar with Massac County and the courthouse down there, it's actually falling down. There was a sales tax referendum put on the ballot to build a new courthouse. It failed. Their courthouse is literally falling to the ground, and it failed. So it's not you're right, it's about how you present it to the voters. That is true.
you have to sell it to the voters.
You have to sell it to the voters.
You absolutely do.
And it takes more than the county people to sell it to the voters. It takes the
Absolutely.
people that want that to happen. The property tax payers have to actually get out and sell it to the voters also. But I think one of the most important things that we do want everybody to know here, that it's not, when we say there's an 8% increase, there's an 8% increase on what we're asking for. We're not going to get 8%.
I mean, how's that determined then? I mean, what you're gonna get?
The CPI is all you're going to get as far as additional revenue off the property that we have already on the books. And that's
2.1, I think.
2.1.
I know it was mentioned about the new properties. In other words, somebody builds a new house or whatever it is to get them on the tax rolls. I don't know that, why that's a big deal, because we've got a